The vast emptiness of space was shattered by the sudden appearance of the Zarkonian battle fleet. Their sleek silver ships glided silently through the darkness, their advanced energy weapons pulsing with an eerie blue light. Earth's defensive satellites picked up the incoming threat, and alarms blared across every continent. In the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF, headquarters, General Maria Rodriguez stared at the holographic display with a mixture of awe and dread. The alien armada outnumbered Earth's defenses 10-1, and their technology was clearly superior. "How long until they reach our outer defenses?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. Lieutenant Jake Thompson, his young face pale with worry, responded, "At their current speed, less than 6 hours, Mom." General Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Alert all UEDF units. We're at Defsion 1. This is not a drill." As the news spread, panic gripped the population. Humanity had long wondered if they were alone in the universe, but no one had expected first contact to come in the form of an invasion. In New Beijing, Sergeant Sarah Chen of the UEDF's 5th Infantry Division watched the sky with her squad. The usually bustling metropolis had fallen eerily silent, its streets empty as citizens huddled in designated shelters. "What chance do we stand against them, Sarge?" Private Lay asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah turned to her team, seeing the fear in their eyes. She wished she had words of comfort, but the truth was, they were woefully unprepared for this fight. "We stand and fight, Lie. It's all we can do," she replied, trying to inject confidence into her voice. As the hours ticked by, the first images of the Zarkonian ships filled every screen on Earth. Their technology was breathtaking. Energy shields that seemed impenetrable, weapons that could vaporize entire city blocks in seconds, and armor that shrugged off Earth's most powerful missiles like they were pebbles. The first battle took place over the skies of London. Earth's fighter jets engaged the alien ships, but it was like watching moths fly into a flame. The Zarkonian vessels danced through the air with impossible agility, their energy beams cutting through Earth's best aircraft like hot knives through butter. In just 30 minutes, the entire Royal Air Force lay in ruins. Similar scenes played out across the globe. Moscow, Washington, D.C., Beijing, all fell to the overwhelming might of the Zarkonian fleet. As the aliens began their ground assault, the true horror of the situation became clear. Their foot soldiers were encased in powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable to small arms fire. They wielded energy rifles that could punch through concrete walls and vaporize human soldiers in an instant. In New Beijing, Sarah and her squad found themselves on the front lines. They had taken up defensive positions in the ruins of a shopping mall, watching with growing despair as the alien forces advanced relentlessly. "Conserve your ammo," Sarah shouted as her soldiers fired desperately at the approaching Zarkonians. Their bullets seemed to bounce harmlessly off the alien armor. A deafening explosion rocked the building as an alien energy blast tore through their defenses. Sarah watched in horror as half her squad was vaporized in an instant. "Fall back," she screamed, grabbing Private Lie and dragging him towards the rear exit. As they retreated through the rubble-strewn streets, Sarah's mind raced. How could they fight an enemy so technologically superior? Their weapons were useless, their defenses paper-thin against the Zarkonian onslaught. For the first time in her military career, Sarah felt utterly helpless. The aliens seemed unstoppable, their victory all but assured. As night fell over the burning city, she looked up at the stars, now obscured by smoke and alien ships. "There has to be a way," she muttered to herself, her fists clenching in determination. "We can't let it end like this." Little did Sarah know, her desperate search for a solution would soon lead to a discovery that would change the course of the war. For in humanity's darkest hour, their greatest strength, their creativity and adaptability, was about to shine through in the most unexpected way. As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, Earth stood on the brink of annihilation. But the human spirit, though battered, remained unbroken. And in the mind of one determined sergeant, the seeds of an idea were beginning to take root. An idea that would demonstrate to the galaxy that in the hands of humans, any object could become a weapon of war. As dawn broke over the ruins of New Beijing, Sergeant Sarah Chen and the remnants of her squad huddled in the basement of an abandoned restaurant. The sounds of alien energy weapons and human screams echoed in the distance. "We're running low on ammo," Private Lai reported, his voice trembling. "Maybe a dozen rounds each." Sarah nodded grimly. She looked around the dim basement, her eyes scanning the shelves stocked with kitchen supplies and cleaning products. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration hit her. "Guys, gather around," she said, her voice low but urgent. "I have an idea." Her squad looked at her skeptically as she began to explain her plan. Sarah pointed to the various items around them: pots, pans, cleaning chemicals, even the gas stove in the corner. "Our guns aren't working against their armor," she said, "but what if we could create weapons they're not expecting?" Private Jenkins raised an eyebrow. "You want us to fight aliens with pots and pans, Sarge?" Sarah shook her head. "Not just that. Think about it. Their armor is designed to withstand our bullets and energy weapons. But what about other things? Things they might not have defenses against." As she spoke, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. She grabbed a large pot and a ladle. "We could use these to make noise, confuse their sensors." Then she picked up a bottle of cleaning fluid. "Mix this with some other chemicals, and we might have something corrosive enough to eat through their armor." Her squad listened, their expressions changing from doubt to interest. Corporal Rodriguez spoke up. "I used to work in a kitchen. If we can get that gas stove working, we could create some pretty intense flames." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. And there's more. We've got knives, we've got heavy objects we could drop from above. Hell, we could even use the food to create slippery surfaces to trip them up." As she spoke, Sarah could see the spark of hope returning to her soldiers' eyes. They began to look around the basement with new interest, seeing potential weapons where before they had only seen junk. "But Sarge," Private Lai interjected, "even if we can hurt them, how are we going to take down their ships?" Sarah paused, considering. Then her eyes lit up. "We start small. We take out their ground troops first, gather intel on their weaknesses. Then we scale up." For the next few hours, the squad worked feverishly, turning the restaurant basement into a workshop of improvised weapons. They mixed chemicals to create smoke bombs and corrosive sprays. They fashioned shields out of pot lids and tabletops. They even created a makeshift flamethrower using the gas stove and some piping. As they worked, Sarah could feel the energy in the room changing. The hopelessness of the previous day was replaced by a grim determination. They might be outgunned and outmatched, but they weren't going down without a fight. Just as they were finishing their preparations, the ground shook with a nearby explosion. Dust rained down from the ceiling. "They're close," Corporal Rodriguez said, peering out a small window. Sarah took a deep breath, looking at her squad, no longer soldiers with useless guns, but warriors armed with the products of human ingenuity. "All right, people," she said, her voice steady. "Remember the plan. We hit them fast, we hit them hard, and we hit them with everything we've got. Show these aliens what humans can do with a few pots and pans." As they climbed the stairs, ready to face the alien threat, Sarah couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They were about to show the Zarkonians that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, but their adaptability and creativity. Little did the aliens know, their first encounter with this new human strategy was about to begin, and it would be unlike anything they had ever faced before. As Sarah pushed open the door to the street, the sounds of alien weaponry grew louder. She gripped her makeshift weapon, a mop handle with a knife duct taped to the end, and nodded to her squad. "Let's show them what we're made of," she said, and stepped out into the war-torn street, ready to demonstrate that in the hands of humans, any object could become a weapon of war. The streets of New Beijing lay in ruins, smoke rising from bombed-out buildings. A group of Zarkonian soldiers marched confidently down the empty road, their energy rifles at the ready. They had grown accustomed to easy victories against the primitive human weapons. Suddenly, a loud clanging noise echoed through the air. The aliens turned, their sensors struggling to identify the source of the unfamiliar sound. From the windows and doorways of the surrounding buildings, a barrage of pots and pans rained down on them, creating a cacophony that disoriented their sensitive hearing apparatus. In the confusion, Sergeant Sarah Chen gave the signal. Her squad burst from their hiding places, wielding their makeshift weapons with fierce determination. Private Lai was the first to strike. He hurled a balloon filled with a mixture of cleaning chemicals. It burst against an alien's armor, the corrosive liquid hissing and eating through the supposedly impenetrable surface. The Zarkonian screamed in pain and surprise, a sound none of the humans had heard before. Corporal Rodriguez followed up with their homemade flamethrower. A jet of fire engulfed two more aliens, the intense heat causing their armor to warp and malfunction. The aliens' energy shields, designed to deflect high-tech weapons, proved useless against the primitive flames. Sarah herself led the charge with her knife-tipped mop handle. She jabbed it into the joints of an alien's armor, finding the weak spots their bullets could never penetrate. The alien fell, its advanced technology defeated by a cleaning tool and human ingenuity. The battle was fierce but quick. The Zarkonians, caught off guard by the unconventional assault, fell into disarray. Their rigid military training had never prepared them for an enemy that would attack with kitchenware and cleaning supplies. As the last alien fell, Sarah and her squad stood in disbelief, panting heavily. They had done it. They had defeated a squad of the invincible Zarkonians with nothing but improvised weapons. "I can't believe it worked," Private Jenkins said, staring at the fallen aliens. Sarah nodded, a grim smile on her face. Belief is the first step to victory. Now let's see what we can learn from their technology. The squad quickly went to work, stripping the alien corpses of their weapons and armor. Sarah knew that understanding the enemy's technology would be crucial for the battles to come. As they worked, a garbled transmission came through on one of the alien communication devices. Sarah picked it up, listening intently. Though she couldn't understand the language, the tone was clear. The Zarkonians were confused and alarmed. "They don't know what hit them," she said to her squad. "And that's our advantage." Just then, the sound of approaching hover vehicles filled the air. More Zarkonians were coming, likely to investigate why their comrades had gone silent. "Quick," Sarah ordered. "Grab what you can and let's move. We need to spread the word about what we've learned." As they retreated into the ruins of the city, Sarah's mind was already racing with new ideas. The kitchen of a nearby restaurant caught her eye, and she grinned as she thought of the potential weapons they could create from the industrial-sized equipment. Word of their victory spread quickly through the human resistance. At first, many were skeptical of Sarah's tactics. But as more reports came in of successful ambushes using everyday items, hope began to grow. In hidden bases and underground bunkers, humans began to look at their surroundings with new eyes. Gardening tools became spears, sports equipment turned into armor, and household chemicals were repurposed into potent weapons. The Zarkonians, meanwhile, found themselves in unfamiliar territory. Their advanced sensors, calibrated to detect high-tech weapons, were useless against the crude but effective human arsenals. Every human dwelling became a potential armory, every civilian a possible threat. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens felt fear. They had come expecting an easy conquest, but instead found themselves facing an enemy that could turn anything into a weapon. As night fell over the battlefields of Earth, Sarah Chen looked out over the city, a spark of hope burning in her chest. The war was far from over, but humanity had found its strength. In their creativity and adaptability, they had discovered a power that no alien technology could match. The Zarkonians had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that superior technology meant an assured victory. But they were about to learn a harsh lesson. When it comes to warfare, Humans could make a weapon out of anything. The underground bunker buzzed with activity. What was once a forgotten Cold War relic had become the nerve center of Earth's resistance. In the heart of the command room, Sergeant Sarah Chen stood before a group of military leaders from around the world, her hand steady as she demonstrated her latest invention, a slingshot made from bicycle inner tubes that could launch small corrosive chemical bombs. "The key is unpredictability," Sarah explained, her voice firm with conviction. "The Zarkonians can't defend against what they can't anticipate." General Rodriguez, who had been skeptical at first, nodded approvingly. "Sergeant Chen, your tactics have given us our first real victories. It's time we spread this knowledge to every corner of the resistance." And so, Operation Everyday Arsenal was born. Sarah found herself at the head of a global training initiative, teaching soldiers and civilians alike how to turn ordinary objects into extraordinary weapons. In the forests of Brazil, Sarah showed guerrilla fighters how to use vines and tree sap to create sticky traps that could immobilize Zarkonian ground troops. Their energy shields couldn't stop the primitive but effective snares. On the streets of Tokyo, she demonstrated how to convert vending machines into projectile launchers, hurling cans of soda at high speeds to dent and damage alien armor. The sugary liquid wreaked havoc on the Zarkonians' sensitive equipment. In the Australian outback, Sarah worked with indigenous trackers to develop camouflage techniques using mud and plant matter. The Zarkonians' thermal imaging was useless against humans who could blend perfectly with their environment. Each region added its own flavor to the tactics. In India, spices became blinding agents. In Canada, hockey sticks were repurposed as close combat weapons. In Egypt, desert sand was used to clog the aliens' advanced machinery. As the strategies spread, so did hope. Humanity began to push back, winning skirmishes and then battles. The Zarkonians, once confident in their superiority, found themselves constantly on edge, never knowing what household item might become their doom. But it wasn't just on the battlefield that humans were making progress. Scientists and engineers, inspired by Sarah's approach, began to reverse engineer the alien technology they captured. They combined Zarkonian power sources with human ingenuity, creating hybrid weapons that packed a serious punch. One day, as Sarah was demonstrating how to turn a pressure cooker into a bomb, a young private approached her with excitement. "Sergeant Chen, you've got to see this," he said, leading her to a makeshift lab. Inside, a group of scientists huddled around a strange device. It looked like a mess of human and alien parts cobbled together. Dr. Patel, the lead scientist, greeted Sarah with a grin. "Sergeant, remember those alien communication devices you brought back? We've managed to tap into their network. We can now intercept and understand their transmissions." Sarah's eyes widened. This was a game changer. "What have you learned?" she asked eagerly. Dr. Patel's expression turned serious. "The Zarkonians are scared, Sergeant. They don't understand how a primitive species is defeating them. But more importantly, we've learned about their main weakness." He pointed to a diagram on the wall. "Their ships, weapons, everything. It all relies on a specific type of energy crystal. Destroy that, and their technology becomes useless." Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. "So if we could target these crystals, we could end this war," Dr. Patel finished. As Sarah left the lab, her head spinning with new ideas, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had come so far from those first desperate days of the invasion. They had taken everyday objects and turned them into a mighty arsenal. They had taken alien technology and made it their own. Now, armed with this new knowledge about the Zarkonian weakness, Sarah knew the next phase of the war was about to begin. It was time to take the fight to the stars. As she walked through the bunker, seeing humans of all nationalities working together, sharing ideas, and preparing for battle, Sarah felt a surge of pride. The Zarkonians had grossly underestimated humanity's greatest weapons: adaptability, creativity, and an unyielding spirit. The tide of the war was turning, and Sarah Chin was ready to lead the charge. The sky above New Delhi glowed an eerie purple as the massive Zarkonian mothership hovered menacingly. On the ground, a mix of Indian military and civilian volunteers prepared for what could be the most important battle of the war. Sergeant Sarah Chen, now a key strategist in Earth's defense, surveyed the unusual array of weapons around her. What once would have been dismissed as junk was now humanity's best hope. Remember, Sarah addressed the gathered fighters. Their weakness is the energy crystals. Aim for anything that glows blue on their ships and weapons. As if on cue, the bottom of the mothership opened, and thousands of Zarkonian troops began to descend. But this time, Earth was ready. The battle began with a surprising attack. Hundreds of kites, a common sight in Indian skies, suddenly took flight. But these were no ordinary kites. Fitted with makeshift electromagnetic pulse devices cobbled together from salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity, they soared towards the descending Zarkonian troops. As the kites made contact, bursts of energy pulsed through the air. Zarkonian weapons flickered and died, their advanced technology no match for this unexpected delivery system of human-made EMTs. On the ground, the human forces surged forward. They wielded an assortment of weapons that would have looked comical if they weren't so effective. Cricket bats swung with precision, their edges lined with a corrosive substance that ate through alien armor. Sari fabrics, treated with a sticky resin, were thrown like nets, entangling the confused aliens. Sarah led a group armed with what looked like ordinary water guns. But these squirt guns were filled with a potent mixture of chemicals that reacted violently with the Zarkonian energy crystals. As they sprayed the alien troops, their weapons and armor sizzled and malfunctioned. The Zarkonians, still struggling to adapt to human unpredictability, found themselves in chaos. Their rigid military structure crumbled in the face of an enemy that turned cultural items into weapons of war. In the sky, the real game-changer unfolded. A squadron of fighters approached the mothership, but these weren't ordinary jets. They were a hybrid of human aircraft and salvage Zarkonian technology. Leading the squadron was none other than Wing Commander Raj Kumar, once a Bollywood actor, now one of Earth's ace pilots. Time to give these aliens a taste of human drama. Raj's voice crackled over the comm. His fighter carried a payload developed by Dr. Patel's team, a missile designed specifically to target the mothership's main energy crystal. As the fighters engaged in a dizzying aerial battle with Zarkonian ships, Raj saw his opening. With a barrel roll that would have looked at home in one of his old movies, he dodged enemy fire and lined up his shot. "For Earth," he yelled, launching the missile. The projectile streaked towards the mothership, its tip glowing with the same blue energy as the Zarkonian crystals. It struck home, burrowing deep into the ship before detonating. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding flash of blue light erupted from the mothership. Energy cascaded across its surface, systems failing in a spectacular light show. On the ground, Sarah and the others watched in awe as the massive ship began to lose altitude. The remaining Zarkonian troops, cut off from their main power source, found their weapons and armor failing. A cheer went up from the human forces as they realized what was happening. The mothership, the symbol of Zarkonian superiority, was going down. As the dust settled, Sarah walked among the wreckage. Zarkonian soldiers, now helpless without their technology, were surrendering in droves. She picked up a fallen alien weapon, now nothing more than an oddly shaped piece of metal, and smiled. Who would have thought, she mused, that kites and cricket bats would be the key to defeating an alien invasion? News of the victory in New Delhi spread rapidly across the globe. Humanity had won its first major battle, proving that their adaptability and creativity could overcome even the most advanced alien technology. As the sun set on the battlefield, Sarah knew this was a turning point. The war was far from over, but for the first time, victory seemed possible. Humanity had shown the galaxy that in their hands, any object could become a weapon. And with that knowledge, they were unstoppable. The victory in New Delhi had changed everything. As news spread across the globe, hope blossomed in the hearts of humans everywhere. But the war was far from over. The Zarkonians, though shocked by their defeat, were not ready to give up their invasion. In a massive ship orbiting Earth, the Zarkonian High Command gathered for an emergency meeting. Supreme Commander Zaxlor, his tentacles twitching with agitation, addressed his officers. "These humans," he growled, "have proven more resourceful than we anticipated. We must adapt our strategies." On Earth, Sergeant Sarah Chen found herself in a similar meeting. Now promoted to colonel, she stood before the United Earth Defense Council, explaining the latest developments. "The Zarkonians are learning," Sarah said, pointing to a holographic map. "They're changing their tactics, trying to counter our improvised weapons." General Rodriguez nodded grimly. "We've noticed. Their new armor seems resistant to the chemical sprays we've been using." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Then it's time we evolve our tactics too." Over the next few months, a strange arms race developed between humans and Zarkonians. For every adaptation the aliens made, humans found a new, often bizarre, countermeasure. When the Zarkonians developed shields to repel projectiles, humans in Australia created boomerang-shaped devices that could curve around the shields and deliver their payload. In response to human EMPs, the aliens built surge protectors into their tech. So humans in Japan repurposed sumo wrestling techniques, using brute force to simply push the aliens off balance and pin them down. The Zarkonians tried to jam human communications, but ham radio operators around the world created a new network using old technology the aliens couldn't interpret. Each side pushed the other to new heights of innovation. The Zarkonians, once arrogant in their technological superiority, found themselves begrudgingly impressed by human ingenuity. But the biggest change came in how humans approached space junk. With most satellites destroyed in the initial invasion, Earth's orbit was filled with debris. Sarah, remembering how everyday objects became weapons on Earth, had an idea. "If we can weaponize what's in our kitchen drawers," she told the council, "why not what's floating above our heads?" And so began Operation Orbital Arsenal. Astronauts, protected by suits made from a mix of human and Zarkonian tech, ventured into space. They gathered floating debris, old satellite parts, pieces of rockets, even frozen coolant, and brought them to a makeshift space station. There, engineers worked tirelessly to turn space junk into weapons. They created clusters of debris held together by magnetic fields, which could be launched at Zarkonian ships. Old solar panels were repurposed into massive reflectors, focusing sunlight into intense beams that could overheat alien vessels. The Zarkonians, who had always seen space debris as a navigation hazard, were unprepared for it to be used as a weapon. Their ships, designed to repel high-energy weapons, were vulnerable to simple kinetic impacts from clustered debris. On Earth, the tide of the war slowly turned. Humans, emboldened by their successes, became more daring in their tactics. In the Sahara, they used sandstorms to their advantage, hiding entire armies that could emerge without warning to strike Zarkonian positions. In the Amazon, they developed camouflage so effective that Zarkonian sensors couldn't distinguish between humans and the dense foliage. Guerrilla strikes from seemingly empty jungles decimated alien patrols. The Zarkonians found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Despite their advanced technology, they were losing ground. Every human household was a potential armory, every piece of garbage a possible weapon. Supreme Commander Zaxlor, watching another of his ships fall to a cloud of repurposed space debris, felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. As Sarah Chen observed the latest battle reports, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were pushing the Zarkonians back. "We've come so far," she murmured, looking at a photo of her old squad from the early days of the war. "And we're not done yet." The war had changed both sides. Humans had evolved, becoming more innovative and united than ever before. The Zarkonians, for their part, had learned painful lessons about underestimating their opponents. As the conflict entered its next phase, one thing was clear. In the hands of humans, anything could become a weapon. And with that incredible adaptability, they were ready to take the fight to the stars. The stars twinkled silently as the massive human fleet approached the Zarkonian homeworld. Ships of all shapes and sizes, a mix of salvaged alien technology and human engineering, moved in perfect formation. At the head of the fleet, aboard the flagship Terra Nova, stood Colonel Sarah Chen, her eyes fixed on the blue-green planet ahead. To think, she mused, just 2 years ago, we were fighting them off with kitchen utensils. General Rodriguez, now Supreme Commander of Earth's forces, nodded solemnly. And now we're taking the fight to their doorstep. Humanity has come a long way, Sarah. The final battle for Earth's freedom was about to begin. But this was no ordinary invasion force. The human fleet carried with it the most powerful weapon of all, an idea. As the ships entered the Zarkonian atmosphere, they were met with heavy resistance. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes lit up the sky. But the human ships, many covered in a patchwork of materials that would have looked at home in a scrapyard, weathered the assault. Sarah's voice crackled over the comm system. Remember the plan. We're not here to destroy. We're here to demonstrate. The human ships broke formation, each squadron executing a different, seemingly chaotic maneuver. To the Zarkonians, it looked like madness. But there was a method to it. From one ship, thousands of small objects were released. The Zarkonian sensors couldn't identify the threat, because they were looking at a cloud of common marbles. As they entered engine intakes and clogged weapon ports, dozens of Zarkonian ships spun out of control. Another squadron released what looked like a massive net made of popkin tabs and fishing line. It tangled around Zarkonian fighters, the simple mechanical trap defeating their advanced shielding technology. On the ground, human drop pods landed. But instead of soldiers, they released swarms of remote-control toys, modified to carry small EMP devices. The Zarkonian ground forces found themselves overwhelmed by an army of buzzing, zapping toy cars and drones. In orbit, the piece de resistance of human ingenuity was unveiled. A massive space station, cobbled together from parts of old satellites, space junk, and Zarkonian debris, moved into position. It unfurled giant solar sails, made from thousands of emergency blankets, and began to reflect concentrated sunlight onto key Zarkonian defense installations. As the battle raged on, something unexpected happened. Zarkonian civilians, watching the human forces turn everyday objects into formidable weapons, began to question their leaders. Transmissions intercepted by human forces revealed growing dissent among the Zarkonian population. How can we call them primitive when they defeat our best technology with objects we would discard? One transmission read. In the Zarkonian High Command Center, Supreme Commander Zaxlor watched in disbelief as his forces were systematically dismantled by what his species had dismissed as junk. A human transmission cut through their communications. Sarah's voice, translated into Zarkonian, echoed through their command center. We don't want to destroy you. We want to show you a different way. Imagine what we could accomplish together. The words struck a chord. Across the planet, Zarkonians laid down their weapons. The war that had begun with an invasion of Earth ended not with the destruction of the Zarkonian homeworld, but with a ceasefire. In the days that followed, humans and Zarkonians sat down to negotiate. The galaxy watched in amazement as the two former enemies began to cooperate, each learning from the other. Zarkonian technology, combined with human creativity, led to advancements that neither species could have achieved alone. The first joint human-Zarkonian space expedition was launched within a year, its hull a patchwork of high-tech alloys and repurposed metal, a testament to the unique strengths of both species. As Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Terra Nova, watching humans and Zarkonians work side by side to repair the damage of war, she smiled. A Zarkonian child was showing a human child how to make a toy out of discarded machine parts. "You know," General Rodriguez said, joining her at the window, "I think we've taught the galaxy a valuable lesson." Sarah nodded. "That the most powerful weapon isn't technology or strength," she said, "it's the ability to see potential in everything around us." As the ships of the combined fleet prepared for their journey home, Sarah felt a sense of pride and hope. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but enlightened. They had shown the universe that in the hands of humans, anything could be a weapon or a tool for peace. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as the fleet set course for Earth, carrying with them the promise of a new era of cooperation and innovation.